Iminochantai na legislature Guahan is called back from recess. Ladies and gentlemen, when we last left, we were with, yeah. We had disposed of bill number 57-35. Colleagues, we are now on bill number 106-35, and per the record, we were with Senator Tello Taitagui, asking an inquiry to Senator Amanda Shelton on behalf of Vice Speaker. So, Senator Amanda, there was an inquiry from Senator Tello. Have you guys resolved the concern? Just ask for the recess.
Can I, a 1-minute recess, Madam Speaker?
On that motion, we will be at a moment's recess. 1:35 na legislature in Guam is back from recess. Senator Amanda Shelton, you are recognized.
Assiduous Masi, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank the previous speaker for the inquiry. I think I've been able to satisfy her inquiry, and I have a proposed amendment to that section. Okay, so,
Please proceed.
yes, this is an amendment to,
It's still on.
Wait, Senator, I do apologize. You're going to propose the amendment? Senator Tello did have the floor, so I have to ask her if that satisfies, and then we can work from there. Senator Tello Taitagui, you are recognized. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you to the prior speaker for the information provided, and appreciate that amendment as well. As I mentioned yesterday, Madam Speaker, I'm the greatest fan of charter schools and want to make sure that it goes forward in a way that it's transparent and there's accountability to this as well. Bill 106 has some parts in there that needs a little bit more cleaning up, Madam Speaker, and unfortunately, it would be something that would require a separate legislation. And Madam Speaker, I'm going to introduce a bill later on today with some of my other colleagues who have that same concern to ensure there is accountability and transparency and to provide the council with the support they need to oversee the charter schools. So, Madam Speaker, there is one amendment I'd like to proffer. And it's very simple, unless it's already been addressed. And it's on page 8, line 2. I believe the word should be cost, not cast.
Thank you very much, Senator Taitagui. On that amendment, are there any objections? No objections. Motion carries. Assiduous Masi, Senator Taitagui.
Madam Speaker, I know that I'm stretching the time that was allotted to me. I think I have 1 minute to go as well. But as we move forward, I'm sure that the amendments that are being proffered, I support the legislation, hoping there's no amendments that's going to not make this a bill worth supporting, But I appreciate the time allotted to me, Madam Speaker, and looking forward to the amendments to come. Thank you.
Assiduous Masi. Colleagues, are there any more folks wishing to speak on the main amendment? I see Senator, anyone else? On the main bill? On the main bill? Okay, so I have Senator Torres and Senator Castro and Senator Taitzino in that order. Senator Torres, you are recognized.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to proffer an amendment to Bill 106 at page 4, lines 14 to 20, and I believe that the copy of my amendment has been circulated.
Does everybody have a copy of the amendment? Please proceed, Senator Torres.
Okay. So the amendment to the bill is to read on line 14, page 4, number 8, annual financial audit and subsequent fiscal year annual financial audits, a financial statement audited by the public auditor, to add pursuant to section 1908, chapter 19, Title I Guam Code annotated under section 12107Z of this act. And then further down on line 17 to read, pursuant to section 1908, chapter 19, Title I Guam Code annotated, the public auditor is authorized to supervise audits or at the public auditor's discretion exercise his or her authority to make the selection of the auditing firm or organization and the scope of the audits, semicolon, the audits are to be at the cost of the charter schools, which said cost may be included in its annual budget. Madam Speaker, the reason for these amendments is simply to make it abundantly clear that the public auditor has the authority to conduct financial audits of the charter school. Where the Charter School Act doesn't explicitly mandate that the OPA supervise the financial audits, what I'm doing by referencing Title I Guam Code annotated Section 12107, I'm sorry, Section 1908 of Title I Guam Code, Title I Chapter 19 Guam Code annotated. What I'm doing is I'm citing specifically the OPA's broad authority so that it's abundantly clear that he has authority to conduct audits.
Thank you, Senator Torres. On the amendment by Senator Mary Torres, I see the Oversight Chair on OFP. I see Senator Taitano, and then Senator Paris, then Senator Taitano.
Madam Speaker, I just ask that if we can amend the, on the last sentence where it says, which said cost may be included in its annual budget, that we strike out may and it will say shall be included.
There has been an amendment to the amendment to strike out the word may and include shall. Do I hear an objection? Do I hear an objection? No objection. Motion carries. On the amendment by Senator Torres as amended, I have Senator Sabina and then Senator Taitano. Thank you. It was addressed. Thank you, Senator Paris. Senator Assistant Majority Leader, you are recognized.
Sainama Asi, Speaker. I just want to rise in support of this amendment. I always think it's important to clarify where we can. I do believe that the authority was less clear. I think that this creates a real understanding and sheds away some of the ambiguity in the authority. So I just wanted to be able to rise in support of that clarity, that clarification.
Jesus Masi, Assistant Majority Leader. Anyone else wishing to speak on the Senator Torres amendment, which was amended? If not, are there any objections on the amendment? If there are no objections, motion carries. Senator Torres, you still have the floor.
No further comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Torres. Anyone else on the main motion? If not, before we close on the bill, anyone on the Senator? Didn't Senator Kennedy speak already? On the main bill, no. Okay, just for clarity's sake, anyone else on the main motion? I have Senator, the Assistant Majority Leader, and then Senator Castro. And then Senator Terlahi. Assistant Majority Leader, you are recognized.
Sijus Masi, Madam Speaker. My proposal for an amendment is just to add in one word. It would be on page 8, line 10. And my proposal is to amend this to read, shall retain the identical charter school budget appropriated prior to its conversion. Because in the line previously, it mentions both a public school and an academy charter school, so that if we just use the general term school, it leaves it as ambiguous as to what we are referring to. So it makes the most sense that the charter school was last referred to, that the charter school would retain its budget as it moves forward into potentially a converted building.
So your amendment, Senator Taitano, just for clarity, please state that.
Yes, it's to add in one single word on line 10.
Right?
And that word is charter right before school, so that it's
To
clear.
retain the identical charter school.
Yes, retain the identical charter school budget.
Senator Titano, you know what? I'm going to take a moment's recess for legal clarification. Imina 35 na legislatura in Guam is back from recess. Senator March Taichino, I know you were conferring with legal. You are recognized still.
Saina Maasi, Madam Speaker. So after conferring with legal, and I want to thank my colleagues for helping me think the issue through and how to best address it, and to look at it from different angles. So I would like to withdraw the amendment to
Okay.
add in the word charter.
Yes,
And-
I'll go ahead and take that motion.
Yes.
On the motion to withdraw the previous amendment by Senator Taichino, any objections? Hearing none. Motion carries. Senator Taichino, I'll still give you the floor.
Saina Maasi, Speaker. So what I would like to propose is an amendment to just simply strike out Section F in the bill. On page 8, lines 9, 10, and 11, Section F, to strike it out in its entirety. With this section, it's mingling and mixing up public school formulas for costs and appropriations for students and that of academy charter schools, and they are vastly different. It also creates a situation, such as with FQ Sanchez, which has been closed for many years. If that were ever to be converted, if we were to follow what this says, the school budget appropriated prior to its conversion would be zero. And so there would be nothing for that charter school to work with. And then the other way around. If it were a school that had a different population and a different formula for appropriation were to be converted, then that wouldn't match the charter school appropriations, and it would be unequal with all the other charter schools out there. So our conclusion as a body was to just simply strike out F because it just confuses things by mixing together those two different formulas. So that is my proposed amendment.
On that amendment, anyone wishing to speak to the amendment? Are there any objections? Hearing none. Motion carries. Next on the agenda, Senator Therese Terlahi, you are recognized on the main motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I stand in support of the bill. I just have a couple suggestions or questions for this bill, and one of my amendments is going to be taken care of by the sponsor. So I would, if we could draw your attention to page 3 of the bill. Page 3 sets the deadline for petitions to the council to establish a new charter school. So anyone who wants to establish a new charter school, according to the bill, will submit their petition no later than July. And the deadline, according to our current statute, is August. So this would move that deadline up to July. However, in the rest of the bill, you can see that the budgets are going to be submitted in June. So I think that we really need to decide whether we're going to allow a charter school to be established it says for the next school year, meaning if you submit it in July, that's August. That's 1 month from then. So I feel like it's got to be earlier if it's for the next school year that the council decides whether to allow a charter school or not, so that this new charter school can submit its budget by the June deadline that is put in by the bill also. So in order to meet this, I'm suggesting March, Madam Speaker, and I really am just relying on when they first established the law for charter schools, March was the deadline for any new charter school that year. So I'm thinking it's feasible. But if anyone knows otherwise, I'm open to amendment on that date. I was trying to decide between January and March. But otherwise, it just has to be prior to June. It has to give the council enough time to get a quorum in case they miss 1 month and to actually make a decision on this petition before the June deadline of when they need to submit their budget.
Si Zeus Masi, Senator Chalahi. So to my colleagues, that it was to amend
Line
the
14.
month July to March at this time, and that's on line 14 and line 17. Am I right, Senator Chalahi? On that motion, Senator Joseph Augustine, I will recognize you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. My understanding of when they submit the petition, it's not for the coming school year. So in other words, the school year starts in August, September. When they submit their petition, it's for the following year. In other words, if you submit a petition today, for example, July, it is not going to go into effect for September when school year opens. It's for 2020. So it allows them the time next year to submit their budget on time so we can approve for them to be funded in FY21 school year. That's how that works. So, I mean, but I have no objection if you want to move it to March. There's not a problem. They still won't get approved until the following year when they submit their budget. Petition is just to get in the door. The budget is when we fund them to be fully engaged with government funds.
Si Zeus Masi, Senator San Augustine. Anyone else? Senator Tello Tidegway, I will recognize you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And to the mover of the amendment, if it is an amendment, because I wasn't quite sure.
Yes, it was an amendment.
She made an amendment to change from July to March.
Yes,
correct?
it was clarified.
Okay. So my question is, after hearing the prior speaker in regards to that, the petition to open a charter school based on the law is in March. That's when the deadline is. In other words, they can't even come in July to go for the following year. Is this like a deadline?
So I will pose that as a question. Senator Therese, would you like to answer?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Thank you for the question. So the current law has August as a deadline. So yes, if you use August, because schools start in August, and we use that together with the language that's in here, the following school year, then you can submit by August, but it's not going to come into effect until the following school year, not that same August. But now that we're moving the deadline up to July by the bill, when you use the words the following school year, you're talking about the 1 month later following school year. That's my interpretation of this language. That's why I'm saying, so I just wanted to make it earlier than that. And so I'm suggesting March gives the council enough time to decide, and April, May, June, they have enough time to get their budget. Or sorry, they would decide in an April meeting, let's say, right? You submit your petition by March, decide by April, all things going very well, and hopefully get your budget in by June.
Well, Madam Speaker, based on that, it's still, even if they have their petition, based on the previous speaker from Chico, if they put in their petition in March, it still doesn't allow them for that following year. It allows them for the next year. So let's say 2019, no, it's for 2020. I mean, that's what I was based on. So even if they were to come in March, it still means not this coming year, but the following year. And even if they come in July, they still won't be able to go to this year, but wait till the next year before they begin.
Well, if that's the intent,
Yes.
Madam Speaker, then we need to change the bill, because I just think when we moved that deadline from August, and then for the following school year, that was very clear. But when we say July for the following school year, that's a whole different interpretation. So that's why I think that's incorrect now. That if we say July, it's for a whole other year. I think so. That's what I'm saying. If you want it.
Senator Chalahi, thank you very much for that. I'm going to, just based on the presentation, I will call for a moment's recess so that we can regroup and verify on the technicality of the school year. We are in a moment's recess. Guys, we're going... Imini 35 na legislatura in Guam is back from recess. At this time, I would address the author of the amendment, Senator Chalahi.
Thank you,
You're
Madam
recognized.
Speaker. After consultation with my colleagues, I would withdraw my original amendment and offer an amendment to revert the language from July back to August, to the original August.
Thank you. So on that amendment to withdraw Senator Chalahi's amendment from March, any objections? No objections? Motion to withdraw granted. And then on the motion to take the July month and change it back to the original August, on that amendment, are there any objections? Anyone wishing to speak? Senator Sabina Perez, you are recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I just have a point of inquiry. The reason why the author chose July. I just don't know what the reason was for them to change it to July.
I will go ahead and state the question. Senator Jim Moylan, as author of the legislation, would you like to answer the question in reference to why the original month of August was changed to the July? No. Of the author. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Legislative Secretary on behalf of the Vice Speaker. Wrong bill. Please excuse me, I had three charter bills. Senator Amanda Shelton, would you
Thank you
like to
very
answer
much.
the inquiry?
Thank you very much, Speaker. I believe the intent of changing it to July was to give the additional month, but we're fine with August.
Thank you very much. Senator Sabina, does that answer it? If not, anyone else? On Senator Terlahi, would you like to close on your amendment? Okay, on the motion to change it back to the original August month, are there any objections? No objections, motion carries. Senator Therese, you still have the floor.
Thank you very much. Just one more point I'd like to make on the bill is on page 7, subsection D, this amendment to the law is going to allow that constructing temporary structures, if those can be removed or reverted back to the government of Guam, then they can, our government money can pay for that. And I just feel like it's very vague, Madam Speaker, in that it's going to allow us, normally when we give charter schools money, it's to pay for teachers and everything else. But this would allow them to pay for capital improvements also, and it says if they are going to revert, if they can be removed and reverted back to the government of Guam. But I guess the first question that came to my mind is what if we don't want that back? Why would, and of course, I just don't know what they're planning to build, and maybe they're beautiful structures. However, they're building these things for their purposes, and I don't know. It's a big exception to allow capital improvement projects to a property that the government of Guam does not own and may have no need for. But if maybe someone can enlighten me. Otherwise, though, I would just suggest we delete that section, subsection D, from the bill, not from the law, just the changes that are proposed.
On
in
the motion to delete subsection D, on page 7, are there anyone wishing to speak on that amendment? Senator Telo Taitaway, I will recognize you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And, I'd like to think that whatever we're spending money on, especially if it's a building or an improvement, that, where it's like we're giving them money to build a building, and after it's done, it's like lease to own almost, that the money that we invested is actually going to come back to us in the event something doesn't work out. And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's what this does. It allows us to recover any of the costs that we've put forward on any school. If they're building a building, that it can come back to us. We can sell it If we don't want it, it's an opportunity that we can sell it off. Sometimes when you inherit a building, the cost is more costly to manage that building than it is to take it on, especially when you're short of cash to be able to do that. But it also gives us the opportunity is that if we take that building back to the government of Guam, which we basically paid for in the first place with taxpayers' money, then we should have the opportunity then to sell it or keep it. But at least we get that opportunity. So that's my only concern about this. By deleting it, at least we have the option. We can recover costs. So if I may have a minute recess too, Madam Speaker, I think if we're on the same page on that, if that's exactly what it means, I'd like to know for sure and consult with the amendment.
Senator Tello, I will allow the moment's recess.
Thank you. Thank you.
Emina 35 na Legislature ng Guam is back from recess. We left off with Senator Tello Tadegui. You still have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. After speaking with the author, everything's been cleared up, which she's going to proffer an amendment to suffice my concerns.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else on the amendment? Senator Joseph Augustine, on Senator Therese Chalayi's amendment.
Madam Speaker, I just wanted to make a very clear statement for my colleagues. In this bill, when we want to talk about budgeting, the council plays a role on what the charters do. What we as a body does every year is identify a budget per pupil cost, nothing else. So as we look through this bill and it talks about no capital improvement funds, we don't budget. We don't give them funds for capital improvement funds. If we want to talk about anything else in this bill, we don't provide them funds for that. We provide per pupil cost. Now, what they do in their budget, they got to meet with the council and massage whatever way they need to do it, but that's on them. That's not on us no more. We provide a per pupil cost, and that's it, and then we just walk away. And then it's up to them to flex it, because they don't pay the same amount. The cost at charter school is not the same as in DOE. So the question of, well, we're taking money, charter schools taking money from DOE to fix schools. If it didn't cost us as much to pay for DOE employees, we probably have more than enough money to fix schools. But because that's just the nature of the beast, classified employees, that's the cost. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Senator San Augustine. Anyone else on the amendment as proffered by Senator Terlahi? We're still on the amendment, and if there's, I will give the author the opportunity to close. Senator Terlahi, I apologize. Senator Sabina did have a motion. Wants the opportunity to speak, and unless otherwise you want to withdraw the amendment. Thank you. I will recognize Senator Therese Chalayi at this time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and yes, thank you to my colleagues. After discussion, I would like to withdraw the original amendment to subsection D, which would have been to restore it to the original law. So I would like to withdraw that amendment.
You are going to withdraw your amendment on deleting section D, am I right?
On deleting the bill's changes to subsection D.
Yeah. Okay. On that motion, without any objection, motion carries. Senator Terlahi, I'll still give you the floor.
Thank you. So I passed out a floor amendment, so it's in writing, and I would like to take subsection D, which would change existing law, which currently the law prohibits construction, reconstruction, or improving a school, your charter school with these government funds that the government is providing. And this bill would create an exception to that and would allow some improvement and some reconstructing of a facility that the charter school is using. And it will also allow constructing temporary structures that can be removed and reverted back to the government of Guam. So I would like to add to this provision of the bill the words, with the approval of the council, meaning you can do that type of exception, temporary construction, with the approval of the council. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Si Jules Masi, Senator Terlahi, on that amendment, anyone wishing to speak on the amendment? Senator Sabina, I will recognize you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It wasn't too long ago that we were debating on an amendment for a previous bill that required the assessment from the superintendent to see if there's any underutilized schools available for charter schools. And I think that amendment probably should also apply to this bill, where we should look to see if there are spaces available in schools prior to actually using public funds for construction of temporary structures. I think, we're in a situation too where we're waiting for the rebuilding of Simon Sanchez High School, and to have funds directed towards a temporary structure, I feel is questionable. And I think there has to be some additional amendment to include the assessment of whether there's space available in schools to allow for these charter schools. Suzu's Masi.
Cesar Masi, Senator Perez. Anyone else on the amendment? If not, are there, Senator Chalayi, would you like to close?
Madam Speaker, the previous speaker is absolutely correct. That's my concern with this provision of this bill, is to allow. I was not aware, and I'm not sure how that happened, but I was not aware that money is being spent to improve other facilities or anything like that. And so, yeah, I agree. While we're waiting for Simon Sanchez to be fixed, and many other schools on the list that have been put on hold while we wait for Simon Sanchez to be fixed, that I'm very concerned about that. And I am just trying to find a happy medium, and I'm hoping that with the approval of the council, we'll give it at least some public scrutiny, and we'll have it publicly announced in a meeting that that's what they intend to use the money for. And I'm very much putting our faith in this council that they are going to be able to scrutinize that and see if the construction of temporary structures is something that we want reverted to the government of Guam or will benefit us. We're putting faith again in another agency in the executive branch, which is what we have to do, I think. And I guess we're going to just have to keep a close eye and monitor that, and I'm sure that the committee chair will do that and change it if they're not able to give it that kind of scrutiny. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Jesus Masi, Senator Chalayi. On the amendment, are there any objections? Hearing no objections, motion carries. We are back on the main motion. Anyone wishing to speak on the main motion? Still has the floor. Oh, she's done. Anybody else? So, Senator Castro, on the main motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to rise in support of the bill with all the amendments. I think the bill, at least in principle, strengthens the charter school system. It makes it equal to and not subservient to the Guam Department of Education. I also want to commend the authors of the bill and everybody who contributed to the discussion on the improvement of Bill 106. Based on the language that's incorporated here, it's obvious that they did their due diligence. There were a lot of concerns that were raised in the 34th Guam Legislature as the former subcommittee chair on charter schools, and I can see, based on the different provisions of this bill, that a lot of them have been cured, or at least are proposed to be adopted that may address these. Madam Speaker, it's also my opinion that if the bill is passed, it'll enhance the standing of the charter school system, and that these improvements will be codified in the statute. I think this bill is a step in the right direction and is reflective of a process, albeit iterative. It's still an improvement, and it's an improvement that's consistent with the accreditation process as well. Throughout the course of the day, several of us have found counsel in each other. There are deficiencies that we still see within the current statute that the bill does not address. And so at a later time, as Senator Telo Taitagui had referenced, I will introduce another measure that we hope will complement this effort. You know, Madam Speaker, as the former chief planner for the Department of Education, and also having had the privilege to serve former Speaker Dr. Judy T. Wampat, and having had those conversations with the late Superintendent Louis Regis, the compassionate superintendent. I remember the conversations with both the Speaker, Superintendent Regis, before he passed when I was still with the department, and with key staffers like Mark Duarte, where we went back and forth on trying to put together a system that we envisioned would be flexible, that would permit it to be innovative, to make certain changes, whether it's to the operations or the financing, or even have the opportunity to make changes to the core curriculum as they saw fit and as was consistent with the mission of the school. And so I think that Bill 106, as written with the amendments, is definitely a step to helping us realize that. It's a signal to the people of Guam and the greater region that our charter school system is maturing. We see the deficiencies and we're making improvements. Madam Speaker, I also want to state for the record that the bill addresses a couple things. First, in my opinion, it establishes certain internal controls that helps to prevent conflicts of interest. There are also very explicit provisions in the bill, Madam Speaker, that establishes controls that are both outside of the school or the charter school and outside the entire charter school system itself. And last but not least, Madam Speaker, again, my commendation to the authors and the technical staff who put this together. There's a key provision in the bill as written that protects the people of Guam, the government of Guam, from any long-term indebtedness and liabilities. I think this is a tremendous piece to take us forward. I want to commend the authors, and again, I want to restate my position for Bill 106 with the amendments. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
You're very welcome. Anyone else on the main motion? If not, Senator Legislative Secretary Shelton, you are recognized. Senator Castro.
Madam Speaker, I beg the
I
indulgence.
will allow you this extra time, yes. Go ahead
Great.
and
Well, this
proceed.
wouldn't
I
be on the
just-
main motion, Madam Speaker. This is an amendment, a proposed amendment, and I beg the indulgence of the body. I thank the spokesperson for the committee chair for reminding me. Several of us are in concurrence to the following proposed amendment. On page 8, line 14, Section 8, effective date. This act shall be effective upon enactment. So we would strike on October 1st, 2019. The proposed amendment, again, Madam Speaker, and forgive me for not having written it down, is this act shall be effective upon enactment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
On that motion, are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Senator Castro, done? Thank you. Senator Shelton, you are recognized.
Siduous Masi, Madam Speaker, and I'd like to thank our colleagues for the lively debate and all of the contributions to the bill thus far. Before closing, I'd like to offer 2 amendments that have been passed out. The first amendment will be on line 12, page 8. To amend the bill to read, letter G, all, strike out the word remaining, fiscal year 2019 funds appropriated to the charter school, strike out at the end of the fiscal year, then continue to read, may be used to pay prior year obligations.
On that motion, are there any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. Senator Shelton, you're still recognized.
Okay, thank you. And then one more amendment to add a new section to the bill to read, a new section, oh yes, it's page 8, a new section F. Just to refresh, we did in an earlier motion strike out section F, so I'd like to replace here with the new section F to read section 12119 of chapter 12, title 17, Guam Code annotated, is amended to read, there is hereby I'm sorry, I lost my place.
Senator, that would be a new section after G? So just adding a new section? Huh? It's a new section to the bill, right? Yes, okay. Please proceed. No.
Okay. There is hereby created, separate and apart from other funds of the Government of Guam, a fund known as the Guam Academy Charter School Fund. The fund shall not be commingled with any other fund and shall be kept in a separate bank account and administered by the Department of Administration. So it would strike out the Guam Academy Charter School Council and be replaced with Department of Administration for the operations of Guam Academy Charter Schools. The Guam Academy Charter School Council shall make quarterly reports of expenditures from the fund and transmit said reports to the Legislature in Guahan and the Office of Public Accountability. Yes, and to allow the Legislative Council to make technical corrections to the title reflecting the same.
On that motion, Senator Tello, I will recognize you.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, at the beginning of the author of the amendment, I didn't quite hear what she, can I take a short recess? Because on this amendment that was passed out, it doesn't show the page number, it doesn't show the area.
It was to add a new
Yeah.
section at the end of the page.
Okay. If I could take a short
Before
recess, because this is almost contradictory, because, Madam Speaker, on
We
page
will go ahead
7,
and-
beginning E,
yeah. Senator Tello, we'll go ahead and take a
take a short
moment's
recess.
recess.
Thank you.
Y mi 35 na legislatura in Guahan is back from recess. Senator Titlegy, you still have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I was able to talk to the author of the amendment, and it's just a matter of, on page eight, that it creates, this is now section 8. And what is section 8 now becomes section 9.
That's right.
And it was explained to me, Madam Speaker, that this is the part, the amendment that was made is the part of the law in Chapter 12119 of Chapter 12, Title 17, which talks about the fund itself, the creation of the fund. So even though on page 7, letter E, it discussed this, but in a different section of law under funding, which is 12116. So it is appropriate, Madam Speaker, this amendment falls under this chapter and becomes section 8. So I stand in full support of this amendment. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Si Jus Masi. On the amendment, anyone wishing to speak? If not, Legislative Secretary, would you like to close or ask for the vote? On the motion, on the amendment, without any objections? Motion carries. Legislative Secretary, you still have the floor to close.
Sidious Masi, Madam Speaker, and once again, I'd like to thank our colleagues on behalf of the Vice Speaker, who is the main sponsor of this bill, who is currently on military duty. I'd just like to recognize that she really wished to be here to advocate for this legislation, but she is serving our country at the moment. And so I'd also like to once again thank our colleagues who helped really build this discussion and strengthen this bill to help with the budgetary and organizational processes of charter schools. And with that, I'd like to move this bill to the voting file.
On that motion, without any objection, motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we're just going to take a moment's recess to work the logistics, so we are in recess for a moment. y minuto 35 en la legislatura en Guam is called back from recess. Assistant Majority Leader Senator Kelly Marsh Taichno, you are recognized.
Saina Maasi, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, we have exhausted the items on the second reading file, and I move we go to the third reading voting file. I further move that we recess until 2:30 p.m. tomorrow.
On that motion, without any objections, motion carries. We are in recess till tomorrow afternoon. Have a good evening, colleagues. Saina Maasi.